Right. I think that's fixed it. Sorry about that. I've been using the laptop to do other things, and what you have to do is turn on basically a different internal microphone. Thank you. Yeah, you have to turn on a different internal microphone, and I'd done that and forgotten to switch it back. So basically, it's a way of ripping audio. So what I can do is record audio directly on the computer without having to connect any wires or anything. Literally, so if there's something I want to get an audio copy of, I can do it. But I forgot to switch the settings back. Hello, so thank you for the feedback there. Yeah, so I haven't done this for quite a while, but that's not a problem. Oh, my little Lego spaceman's fallen over. You stand up, mate. There you go. Yeah, I haven't done this for a while. It's mainly because I've been doing a lot of work and just I've got to the point where the writing stuff I prefer doing in a coffee shop, so I tend to do mainly editing now on here. But then I've also had 10 days off because I've been really productive this year, as well as finishing the first draft of Empress of the I've been gallivanting, kind of. I've been working and sleeping a lot. To be honest, I haven't done much gallivanting. What was I saying? Because of I've done a lot this year, and I just needed a bit of a break. So I had so I've written it was meant to be the last 3 chapters of Empress of the Trees, but it ended up being 5, which was a fun moment when I realised that my plan for the epilogue just wasn't enough. So I did that, and then I spent a bit of time working on what's hopefully the final draft of Still Life. I think that's signed off now. I have taken it off the opening titles of this, which probably means something will come up and I'll have to change it and add it back in again. But it's easy to do. That's what I like about. I actually retained the files that create the opening title sequence. And oh, hang on. Yeah, I retained the files on my laptop, which means that when I do that, I've dropped my pen now. When I do the opening title sequence, it's just a case of drag and drop the new pictures in, or change the text files and so on. So yeah, it is a few different pictures and slightly different text, but yeah, that's nice and easy. And yeah, and then I was chatting with, just in the countdown, I was chatting with Bobicus about the use of AI to analyse themes and bits and pieces, which is sort of, to be honest with you, is something I've never considered doing. As I say, I use it all the time to correct my dreadful punctuation, but that's about it really. So what am I going to do today? So I'm going to do the paper sign off of chapter 2 of Empress of the Trees' second draft. There's one little thing I'm struggling with. It's not horrendous by any means, but there's a side of me. One of the notes I've got is that I need to introduce Karl Tucker, my bad guy, a bit earlier, so he's in the consciousness when he's properly introduced much later in the book. But I can't really find an obvious place to do it where it doesn't feel a bit crowbarred in. So I might have to leave it where it is. But it'd just be nice if I can have it that it's someone in Ronnie's consciousness that she thinks is a bit of an AH, as it were. But it basically involves her watching the news and going, oh, I don't like him, he's an arse. And there's no obvious point in the book to do that. So anyway, I've got my copy of the second draft here, lovely, printed for me by my hotel in Singapore. That's how long ago I kind of started. Well, it's not that long ago, it's a couple of weeks, but I just needed a break, and that's cool, because my plan for this month basically is I'm not working until the 19th, but I have got to go to a graduation, and I don't know if the person whose graduation is watching this. I don't really want to go, not because I don't want to go to the graduation. I'm looking forward to that and catching up with her. But I don't want to spend the money. It's going to sound awful, but I don't want to support an economy that's run by that man. You know, the man whose face is the same colour as my T-shirt is a way of putting it. But the thing is, I promised I would go before all that happened. So I'm going to go this time. But yeah. There we go. So yeah, so that's kind of my thought process. But I'm really looking forward to seeing my friends. So I'm sure once I'm there, I'll love every minute of it. But yeah, so yeah, the real. Let me just go through my notes that you'll know further on. Ha! What have you been doing? Oh yeah, events. That's allowed. Right, let me find my notes of what I need to do for this chapter. Oh, where have they gone? So, I've put in short, Oliver Shaw is introduced earlier. He's a major character in the last few chapters. He works for, I nearly said the Sutherland Institute, but I've just remembered I've switched books. He works for Arbor Associates, and he's really important at the end, and I need to introduce him earlier on. Having said that, there's no point yet because Arbor Associates aren't a thing in the book yet, so there's really no point going full on introducing a character that is irrelevant at the moment. My second note I've put to myself is, should Ronnie be vegan? And I've come to the conclusion that she actually... Okay, yeah, well, I nearly suggested I met up with you yesterday, and then I thought no, because that looks like I'm trying to muscle in, so I didn't. But I nearly said, "Well, why don't I meet after you guys have met?" And then, but yeah, no, that'd be nice. Well, if I do go to Phoenix, that sounds awful, doesn't it? If I go, oh, actually, no. What's the date on Friday? God, is it that soon? God, it's Friday the 9th. No, I was going to suggest we meet, but I'm supposed to fly on Friday. Anyway, but yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that. That'd be good. Just not this Friday because I'm going to unfortunately be somewhere. My next, so should Ronnie be vegan? I've kind of decided yes. So I've just every time it refers to her, I've not specifically said Ronnie is a vegan. I think Marianne is vegan later on, so they might have a conversation about it later on. But at the moment, all I'm doing is changing any food that it mentions her eating to a vegan option, so she doesn't drink milk. In fact, he just says, "Oh, I'll have a black tea or a black coffee." I haven't specifically said why. Yeah, we need to do something more, don't we? Because it's sort of dying on its arse, it feels like at the moment, which is a real shame. Ensure consistency of description of the alpha site. So that's again for much later on in the book. I had a much better idea of what alpha site was by the time. I mean, we never actually visit it, but I need to talk about what's there. Ensure we know the name of all the soldiers before they go to the Cairngorms, which is again right at the end of the book. So I just need to make sure that the soldiers I name just before I have them killed, I should name them before. Consistency in the naming of the Ragnarok faction leader. So originally I called the character one thing and then I changed it to Signwolf. And the reason I changed it to Signwolf is the name of the writer of a religious poem called Dream of the Rood, which I do have a sort of text book thing about it here. It says, this work has been selected by scholars as being culturally important as part of the knowledge base of civilizations who know it. This work is in the public domain. Scholars believe... Oh, hang on, it just says about how important it is, doesn't tell you what it is. But this is a book about the manuscript, and it's actually... I mean, it's not really... It's Oh, apparently this is printed in Milton Keynes, but it's all about this poem. What the hell is that on there? Which was written basically from the point of view of the tree that Christ, that was harvested to make the cross that Christ was nailed to, and it was written by someone that I believe is called Signwolf. So I need to read it. It's in Old English, so it's I need to get used to it. I need to read it and understand it better. But best city in the world. No, it's not a city. It's not a city. You can't make something into a city. You can't go, oh, it's now called the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, all right, it's a city if you insist. Yes, and the Gulf of Mexico is officially the Gulf of Mexico. I'm winding you up. I know it's officially a city. I remember seeing the news article and chuckling to myself. They'll let anything be a city these days. I am kidding. I like Milton Keynes. It's one of the rare places that is a big urban conurbation that I could actually live in. I don't like crowded. I don't like cities basically, but it doesn't feel like a city. I like it. I mean, it's cool. Is it? Yeah, just because of the layout and stuff, it doesn't have that horrible sort of city feel to it. So yes, it is technically a city, and it is one of the very few I would live in, whereas most I would absolutely not. Love visiting, wouldn't want to live. Yeah, exactly. Oh no, it's actually a pleasant environment. I know a few people criticise it for feeling too manufactured, but I don't care. I like the fact that it isn't just tower blocks, and yeah, it's nice. Um, what else have I got? I want to see the history of depression into my character Marianne. This is particularly important because at the end they are very, very down and not very well. It says it show the death of Karl Tucker because I've just realised I don't provide a definitive ending for my horrible bad guy. Um, So actually, most of these are fairly easy, but the difficult one is introducing. I just want to mention Carl. It's not even in there, look, but I want to mention Karl Tucker earlier, and I'm not finding an obvious place to do it. So, for example, in this chapter, I can't think of anywhere where I can't imagine anywhere that it would go. And like, there's a side of me that says, well, I could stick a telly in their kitchen because I know a few people do have televisions in their kitchen, but I don't see Ronnie's family as being television in the kitchen types. So it can't be this chapter. Anyway, so let's do this. Let's have a look at it. But yes, no, I was joking with you. I don't dislike Milton Keynes at all. Like I said, it's somewhere. So do you consider I won't mention it, but the bit you live in, which is technically its own little town that's sort of been swallowed up? Notification on their phone. Huh? Hang on. Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, I was thinking I'd missed a notification on my phone. Oh, there is a notification on my phone. Hang on. Oh, okay. Yes, I was just responding to yes. In yesterday's podcast. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying now. In yesterday's podcast, I basically said, "Oh, I'm going to go and the blind shop where I get my blinds made was closed on Saturday. I thought it'd be open, so I'm going to pop in on Monday." And Bow Street Society messaged me to remind me that it's a bank holiday because the thing about my job is I don't know what day of the week it is, let alone where bank holidays and stuff are. So I probably would have walked into town and then gone, "Oh God, it's closed." So I shall go in on Tuesday and do that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Again, Ronnie doesn't. I've made a point of saying Ronnie doesn't have a phone at this point. She hasn't got a smartphone. She just has like a clunky old Nokia, the old 3210 type ones. So I'm not that wouldn't work either. So I think I'll just have to keep looking for opportunities. Maybe when they're at university, because I think there's a bit where Danny's watching some TV. Maybe he could turn off the DVD and it defaults onto the news channel, and there's a bit of that's probably more likely where it would sit. I think. Yeah, but yes, okay. So chapter 2, Origins. Let's give you a typing view. I haven't done this for such a long time. Let's just make sure all my settings are correct. Yeah, I actually intended to do this broadcast. Okay, curious. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because it sort of wasn't. And there is again there's green spaces between it. You don't just drive through but through urban conurbations to get from where you live to the city. But I wonder if because there's kind of several areas that are part of Milton Keynes that were individually places or towns or whatever in their own right beforehand. I think. Right then, let's get this up on the screen. Oh, shitting hell, what's going on here? My chapter 2 file isn't chapter 2. Oh, yeah, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, thank God for that. I just had a little moment. Oh, this is chapter 2. I'm thinking it's chapter 1. Villages were covered by NK. Yes, so I know someone who lived in... Where is it? It's on the Bedford side. Let me just have a quick look. Is Sherrington a village in Milton Keynes? Let me just have a look. I had a friend who lived in a village that was swallowed by Milton Keynes. Let's have a look. Let me just have a look on a map. No, I don't want to drive there. I just want to look at the map. Thank you. Let's have a look. Sherrington. Hang on, let me have a look. Where's the road out to Bedford? Not Newport Pagnell. Oh, Sherrington. Okay, no, I'm wrong. It's just on the outskirts. It's so it's just outside Newport Pagnell. I had it in my head it was part of Milton Keynes, but it very definitely isn't. It's near to it, but there's a bit of a gap in the middle. So there's Newport Pagnell, and then yeah. Ah, okay. Was Milton Keynes a village then? I didn't know that. Cool. I'll have to set my next book in Milton Keynes. So, I'll have to look at where it actually was. Right. Anyway, this is not helping me. It's interesting, but it's not helping me continue. So let's. If you do, I want a cameo. Okay. Oh dear. Yeah, I'll have a scene set in Waterstones, and there can be somebody ordering a flat white in the queue behind my main character. Oh dear. Right, let's whiz across to this view, see if that all still works. Yes, it does. Let me have a look on the big screen because it's about 10 seconds behind. Oh, it almost works. That'll do me. I don't like that background. Right, sorry. Procrastinating like hell, aren't I? But I don't like that background, so I'm just going to change it. Hang on. System settings, appearance, no, screensaver. Right, let's have not Dubai skyline. This is London evening. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Let's go for, I've had sort of ones. Let's have a look at those actually. Let's see if I can find something. Oh, North American Aurora, that sounds nice. Let's have that. It's just downloading it. Oh, mind you, it's over North America. China night, Australia, California. Underwater ones. Cityscapes. What other cityscapes are there? Los Angeles Beach, no thank you. Los Angeles, a lot of Los Angeles. Oh, that might be quite nice. No Singapore. London from above I've used before. God, it's taken a long time to download a basic screensaver. Bloody hell. Mind you, there's loads of video in it because bits of it are animated, I suppose. Cardboard. Oh, I'll tell you what I can do whilst that's doing. I just realised I never opened my Discord, and there could be someone who desperately wants to chat right at this moment. Probably not. And also, if I open Discord, it'll update the sodding software. Oh, of course, downloading update. Not you, no. You've done your fair share, to be fair. So, download. No, why is it taking so long to download the update? Probably because it's clashing with the. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's nice. Oh, I'll have that. I mean, that's almost nothing as a background, but that'll do. Right, let me just... Oh, Discord is now... Oh, downloading 7 updates. Of course it is. Come on. Yeah, this is all stuff I should have done before I came online. I wasn't actually planning to do a new title sequence today. All I originally did was went in to... all I did was go in to change the text. Because it said Empress of the Trees first draft. I wanted to change it to second draft. And, yeah. I thought, let's just replace one picture and every now and then replace a picture. And thought, no, sod it, let's do them all. So, right, my Twitch live chat is on. So if anybody wants to come and insult me, they can. Let's go and do some work on chapter 2. Okay. Oh, helps if we actually have the book up on screen as well. Lovely. Right. So, chapter 2, Origins. It was early January. There was a thin layer of snow on the ground in most places, but in Ronnie's hiding place beneath the old oak tree, there was none. She shivered. It was cold today. She had hoped that some of the snow would have made it through the branches of the oak tree and onto the mushroom, now tall and broad. She was not used to seeing this particular fungus at this time of year. It had defied the cold and the frost, and she had taken to drawing it at least once per week. It had changed and grown, and she had enjoyed documenting its progress. It was now looking a little sorry for itself, so she doubted that she would be drawing it many more times. I think "and" would be better than "so" in that sentence, but that'll be fine. And she doubted she'd be drawing it many more times. A pencil drawing of a snow-capped shaggy parasol would have made a lovely addition to her collection, but if it was not going to be, she was not going to invent the image. Her decision not to draw was a sensible one. She'd taken her gloves off a minute ago, and her fingers were already white with cold. I don't think we need that bit about it. That we already know it's cold. I've already said it, so let's just lose that. Ronnie put her gloves back on and grabbed her backpack. This was not her small camo backpack. It was a school one filled with books and her empty lunchbox and a set of waterproofs in case of the weather. I just need to tweak that sentence. It's not a, it was a school filled one filled with books. Her empty lunchbox. That's better. This was not her small camo backpack, it was her school one, filled with books, her empty lunchbox, and a set of waterproofs in case the weather deteriorated on her ride home. She walked quickly through the wood. Nobody else was about. It was cold, and anybody else would have to be insane to brave this weather. She unchained her bike from the fence and was home in a matter of minutes. She secured the cycle in the shed before entering the house in a whirlwind of energy. She locked the back door behind her and opened the side entrance next to the garage so that her parents didn't have to mess around with keys when they got home. Then she ran up to her room. It just needs a little then. Then she ran up to her room, changed out of her school uniform, hung something neatly on a hook at the back of her bedroom door, and put her blouse into the laundry basket. She passed the mirror in her bedroom and glared at the skinny girl looking back at her, wishing she had more curves and fewer straight lines. She shrugged the thought away and pulled on her combat trousers and a baggy jumper. And I worried about putting that because I'm not trying to suggest that being skinny and straight lines is good or that people should look a certain way. It's just relevant to the story later on. She's used to being a skinny girl, and there's a point in the story where she puts on loads of weight. So it's not me purely trying to enforce some kind of body fascism. It's just relevant. She'd been scheduled a free period towards the end of the school today, and as a result had managed to get almost all of her homework done, so she was able to break her usual routine of sitting at the desk in her bedroom and finishing it before doing anything else. She got out her school diary, looked at the timetable for the following day, and packed her bag for tomorrow's lessons. That's page 1, signed off as the minor changes I've made there are no big deal. There's not much in these early chapters I'm going to need to change, hopefully. She headed downstairs and stopped at the front porch to pick up the post. There was nothing of any real interest to her. A couple of credit card bills. Just gonna just slightly reword. Let's just reword that. She headed downstairs and stopped at the front porch to pick up the post. There was nothing of any real interest to her. A couple of credit card bills, what looked like a bank statement, and a couple of letters, all addressed to her father. She was hoping that some information from Mansfield University regarding her DNA tests would come soon. The pack had said 4 to 8 weeks, and it had already been almost 8, but she supposed that was down to the university being closed over Christmas. She walked into her father's study and put the post neatly into the rack on his desk. She knew that Mum had already made the tofu shepherd's pie for dinner tonight. I'm going to lose the word shepherds. She knew Mum had already made the tofu pie for dinner tonight. It was in the fridge, so at just after 5 o'clock, she turned on the oven, and when it reached the correct temperature, she removed the cling film and put the large dish into the oven. I think she'd use foil, not cling film. Again, just thinking about the character. She's less likely to use plastic, so let's change that to foil. Oh, the detail. Oh. It was in the fridge. Just after it turned on the oven, and when it reached the correct temperature, she removed the foil and put the large dish into the oven. She also chopped some runner beans and left them soaking in the pan next to another containing some new potatoes. Shop-bought potatoes, she thought with a sigh. There would be more from her vegetable patch next year. These would have to do until then. Annie was home from work first and said that George was running late thanks to a staff meeting at the school that had gone on longer than anyone intended. Annie thanked Ronnie for getting the food ready and went and changed. Upstairs to change is probably a better way of saying that. This is just such minor detail now, because this has been thoroughly gone through before. You don't include pies in your books. Is there any meaning to... Have I? Oh, there's the... No. I mean, I'm not even massively partial to a pie. What pies? Apart from the Saturday pie, which also technically wasn't a pie. Yeah. That was just me looking for names of stuff during the war, really. And I just liked the idea that it was not really a pie. And also, because it was called Saturday pie, it gave a horrible character an opportunity to be horrible. Which, yeah. And is there a pie? I don't think there's any pies in... I'm going to have to insert pies into all my books now. I don't think there's a pie in the English hikikomori. Let's find out. You've got me thinking now. Let's have a look. See if I can find the English hikikomori. Final version... hang on. No, I can officially confirm there are no pies in the English hikikomori. I will have to insert one. Ah, dear. Right. George arrived not much later in his suit. He looked like a head teacher, so he said a polite hello to his family, went upstairs as Mr. Keane, headmaster, and came back down in his casual clothes, restored to being Dad. Any post, he said, as he stuck his head around the door at the bottom of the stairs and into the living room. In the office, replied Ronnie. Oh, I could do it there. You can have a snack-sized apple pie. No, I'm just thinking if she's in the living room... That's the place. There we go. This is good. Well, it's not good, but it does the thing it needs to do. On a news channel. There we go. Let's see if that doesn't seem too crowbarred in. Let's have a look. Any post, he said, as he stuck his head around the door at the bottom of the stairs and into the living room. Ronnie had the television on and appeared to be channel hopping. As she turned her attention to her father, the picture settled on a news channel. The man being interviewed was Karl Tucker, a lobbyist against policies that favour the environment over industry. In the office, replied Ronnie, poking her tongue out at the man on the screen and pressing the mute button on her remote. Is that all right? It just introduces the concept of Karl Tucker pretty much from the get-go. Cool. Well, that wasn't odd. Any post, he said, as he stuck his head around the door at the bottom of the stairs and into the living room. Ronnie had the television on and appeared to be, shall I just say was? I turned attention to her father. The picture settled on a news channel. The man was Karl Tucker, a lobbyist against policies that favour the environment over industry. In the office, replied Ronnie, poking her tongue at the man on the screen and pressing the mute button on her remote. Fine, that's good. George raised his eyebrows. Still nothing from the university, he inquired. Ronnie put on a faux miserable face. Not that I could see. George nodded and wandered across the hall and opened the door to the study. His eyes fell on the recently loaded letter rack. The bills he would open later, but 2 envelopes were not marked, so he went for those first. Using a knife from one of the drawers in his desk, George opened the first letter. It was a catch-up for an old school friend that was also a teacher. They met a couple of times per year and wrote to each other a few times outside that. Although the address on the envelope was printed, the letter inside was handwritten. George smiled and set it down. He would take the time to read it properly later. He picked up the other envelope and opened it. Their address was printed on it just like the last one. He teased the letter from the envelope, which was folded into thirds, and opened it. At the top was a University of Mansfield letterhead. As soon as he saw this, he refolded the letter, placed it back inside the envelope, and returned it to the rack. He removed the 2 unopened bills and placed them in his top drawer. I'm just going to lose the word 2 because I think I might have established there was more than 2. Well, yeah. He removed the unopened bills and placed them in his top drawer, then stepped back into the hall. He poked his head through the dining room entrance to check that Ronnie was still in the living room before walking up to his wife in the kitchen. There's a letter from Mansfield University, he said quietly. Annie looked up. What does it say? I haven't read it, confessed George. I thought I would let Ronnie do it after dinner. Annie lowered her head in agreement. That's nice, she said. Are you worried about it? There's absolutely no reason why I should be. And I've said there's and it writes as there is, so let's change that. There's absolutely no reason why I should be, he replied. All it will say is what parts of the world her DNA comes from. DNA is plural? DNA comes from? Oh, doesn't matter, it's how he speaks. But yes, I'm a bit apprehensive, which makes no sense at all. You've seen her since her birthday, said Annie, almost whispering, just in case her daughter was wandering about. She already knew she was adopted. She simply doesn't care. It has made no difference to her whatsoever. George nodded. I know. So, once we've finished eating, is that okay with you? Annie turned and kissed him. Of course it is. Ronnie walked in at this moment and performed a mock grimace. I'll lay the table, she said. You do that, said Annie. Dinner will be ready in 5. They discussed their days over dinner. Ronnie was always surprised at what she could not see going on behind the scenes at her school, and because she had never disclosed any privileged information, the stigma of being the headmaster's daughter had worn off, and most people forgot now. Once they'd finished eating, George sent Ronnie to the study to get the post. She twigged immediately that it was something to do with her results, ran to the office, grabbed the only letter that was left in the rack, and dashed back through to the living room. She tried to hand it to her dad, but he motioned her back to her seat. She sat down breathless and pulled the letter from the opened envelope. Have you read it already? Do you know what it says? George shook his head. Ronnie unfolded the single piece of paper and spread it out before her. Dear George, she read, I hope you don't mind that I've hijacked the normal process of results delivery and written to you in person. I do hope that you and your family are well. Do you know what? I normally put letters and stuff in italics, so I'm just going to do that. Dear George, she read, I hope you don't mind I've hijacked the normal process of results delivery and written to you in person. I do hope that you and your family are well. I've written to you because the results of the DNA sample you sent in from Veronica are extremely unusual and interesting. Let me emphasise there is absolutely nothing to worry about. These results are simply scientifically simply, I'm going to lose the simply, I think, are scientifically fascinating rather than troublesome. After the first test highlighted the unusual results, I was directly involved in the analysis of the confirmatory sample, and the results were identical, which I suspected they would be. It was simply not possible the results from the first sample result of a cross-contamination or any other procedural error. I would appreciate the opportunity to explain the results to you and Veronica in person, and as such would like to offer an invitation to come up and visit us where we can go through I'm going to say findings instead of results for the first one, because of the repetition of the word results. I would appreciate the opportunity to explain these findings to you and Veronica in person, and as such would like to offer you an invitation to come and visit us where we can go through the results and implications in full. I understand that you're a busy man, but I really think you'll find what I have to tell you intriguing. Please contact my office, see the details on the letterhead, and arrange an appointment that have instructions to prioritise your visit over everything else. I do hope you're able to find the time to do this soon. It would be great to catch up. Kind regards, Richard. She has tree DNA in her DNA. Yes, she has chloroplasts. You stand her in the sun and she'll get a sugar rush. No. Ronnie put the letter down. It's weird, isn't it? I really struggled with Ronnie, but now I've sussed the character. She is Ronnie. Do you remember? I'm sort of generally talking to the audience as well as specifically Tani here, Bow Street Society. I really struggled with her name and considered changing it. And I do genuinely think it was just a symptom of the fact that I hadn't figured her out. Ronnie put the letter down. She had a perplexed look in her eyes. She'd been expecting this letter to give her some answers, not create more questions. She was not how she felt right at this moment, and when the tension within her broke, this manifested itself as a single tear running down her face from her left eye as she blinked. George jumped out of his chair, walked over to hers, and put an arm around her shoulders. He calmly picked up the letter and read through it again. It was exactly as his daughter had read out loud. She admitted nothing. There were no other clues about the results in there at all. It's going to make a couple of phone calls in the morning, he said. Ronnie stared up at him. You can't get the time off, though, she said. She was still composed, but felt resigned not to finding out the answer of the mystery anytime soon. For you, I can do anything, replied George. I am the headmaster, you know. He frowned. I won't be asking them for an afternoon off. I will be telling them that I'm having one. Telling them that I'm having one does sound better than what I've actually put. Again, it's weird. Telling them that. So let's just add that in there. I'm having one. Annie had leaned across and taken the letter from her husband, then skimmed through it. That's a weird change of tense. I should say, and was skimming through it. And leaned across and taken the letter from her husband and was skimming through it. Looks like Richard is doing well for himself then. The letter was signed by Dr. Richard Peyton, who had been an old school friend of George's. Do you want me to come as well? She asked. Ronnie nodded gratefully. I shall call him in the morning, said George. Arrange the meeting as soon as possible. We can leave at lunchtime and get there just after 2. How does that sound? That sounds great, Daddy, thank you. He squeezed her shoulders gently. It took Ronnie ages to get to sleep that night. Shall I say a long time? Rather than ages. It took Ronnie a long time to get to sleep that night. She did not possess a mobile phone, as it simply, there you go, see, look, say I know my character. It took Ronnie a long time to get to sleep that night. She did not possess a mobile phone, as it simply did not interest her. But on this one night, she wanted to text her friends, especially Danny, to tell her about what had happened and to be reassured that everything was okay. Danny was great at that. His presence was like that of a comforting teddy bear, and this evening she felt like she needed that more than anything. The next day during break, During break time? Next day during break time, Danny and Ronnie sat outside the school. Next day during break time, Ronnie and Danny Danny and Ronnie sat outside the school in the play area. It was mostly populated by younger children, but Ronnie always spent some of her break outside, and Danny always joined her. Let's lose the her. Summer break outside, and Danny always joined her. It was sunny today, and as a result it was also chilly. The younger children were dashing about in their coats and shouting and screaming, and occasionally falling over and crying. Danny sat on a wall at the back with Ronnie, the pair of them looking almost like teachers. Danny sipped from his tea. Ronnie had a flask with her, and they shared the Earl Grey. It was not his favourite taste, but he put up with it. Oh, he's a Star Trek fan. If he's drinking Earl Grey, there's no way he would be able to resist making a Star Trek comment. Danny sipped from his tea. Ronnie had a flask with her and shared the Earl Grey. It was not his favourite taste, but he put up with it. As she poured it, he had said, "Tea, Earl Grey, hot." He said it every time. She had no idea why. And that's a Star Trek reference. So Captain Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation liked his Earl Grey. And in the future, you have replicating machines. So you literally walk up to a computer and tell it what you want. And he always used to say, "Tea, Earl Grey, hot." So there you go. Oh, I'm such a sad bastard. Right, Danny sipped from his tea. Ronnie had a flask with, and they shared the Earl Grey. It was not his favourite taste, but he put up with it. As she poured it, he'd said, "Tea, Earl Grey, hot." He said it every time. She had no idea why. Oh, see, unnecessary but fun. And again, because I've got him referring to speeds as warp speeds and stuff later on when he's driving. So, from what you say, it's nothing to worry about, he said after a few moments of reflection. She had told him what the letter had said and what they were planning to do. The family were planning to do. Makes more sense. I know, but it's a bit mysterious, isn't it? Yes, said Danny with a frown. Maybe you're a clone. Ronnie gave him a vexed look. Danny loved his science fiction, would drop references from it into almost every conversation. Oh, that's nice, because that contextualises what I just did. After him endlessly going on about various shows they'd liked, she finally relented and watched a couple with him. She'd found them rather enjoyable, but was not going to tell him that. She'd simply offered up slightly less resistance the next time he had suggested it. Yes, she said, expanding on the idea. Maybe there's more than one of me. You could get one of your own. Ronnie 3, the exclusive property of Daniel Huxley. You'd like that? Danny blushed and sipped at his tea. My bedroom would definitely be tidier. Ronnie grinned. I'm sure I'm not a clone, but I've been racking my brains to work out what it could be. It's not a disease or a congenital defect. Dr. Peyton did say scientifically fascinating rather than troublesome. I just can't work it out. Perhaps you're the illegitimate offspring of someone famous, said Danny, thinking out loud. Or someone royal. Oh. Ah, that's better. Right, is this okay? Perhaps you're the illegitimate offspring of someone famous, said Danny, thinking out loud. Someone like Karl Tucker. Ronnie glared at him with mock anger. Or someone royal. Or was that going too far now? It's just squeezed two references in quite close together, but... yeah. Perhaps you're the illegitimate offspring of someone famous, said Danny, thinking out loud. Someone like Karl Tucker. Ronnie glared at him with mock anger. Or someone royal. It's as good a theory as anything I've managed to come up with, said Ronnie. If you're right, I think my preferred address will be Your Royal Highness. Replied Danny. The correct protocol would be Your Majesty, he replied. He smiled. So, about our science project. They were interrupted by a teacher. Ronnie, love, your dad would like to see you. Miss Appleby had walked over to them through the frantic melee. Who, sorry? Miss Appleby grinned. I'm sorry. Ronnie, the headmaster would like to see you. What have you done? Asked Danny with a grin. I'm hoping he has some news about when we can go and see Dr. Peyton, said Ronnie. She jumped down from the wall and walked carefully through the playground and the writhing mass. Jonathan walked carefully through the playground and the writhing mass of younger children. Danny watched her go and sighed. Go right in, said Miss Starner. He's expecting you. Out of politeness, Ronnie knocked on the door anyway and waited until her father's deep voice summoned her in. As soon as he realised it was his daughter, and the door was closed behind them, his mask dropped and he was the headmaster no more. It was weird the way he could do that with his face, Ronnie thought. Same features in the same order, but almost like two separate people. I'm going to lose the word like, but two separate people. Friday was a single word, he said. Afternoon. Ronnie looked hopeful. Really? That soon? I never usually ask for time off for stuff like this, so they couldn't say no, said George. I did have one lesson scheduled, but Miss Appleby has kindly said she will step in for me. Most head teachers did not get involved in actual teaching anymore, but George took one class for one set of lessons per week. He felt it kept him grounded, as if he had to manage people who wanted a genuine understanding of the issues they faced. So 5 times a week he took one class through their biology curriculum. Miss Appleby was a joint science teacher, but knew more than enough to take the class through the lesson plan he had for them. I think there wouldn't be that many biology lessons in a week, so I'm going to say 4. 8 lessons a day, 5 lessons a week, 40. Would it be 1/10 of the curriculum? It could be, actually. Oh, but then you add factor in stuff like PE, and no, I'm going to just make it 4, not 5. Miss Appleby was drawn to knew more enough to take the class through the lesson plan he had for them. Instead of cycling, you can come with me in the car. I have a meeting in the morning which should be done by 11. He looked unconsciously at his watch. Well, will be done. You go to your first 2 lessons, then meet me at the car. We should be at Mansfield University for not long after 2. Did you get to speak to Dr. Peyton? Asked Ronnie with excitement. Did he give you any clues? No, I spoke to his department secretary. She cleared his schedule from 2 o'clock. There's only one thing. I called your mum and she can't get the time off such short notice, but she wants us to go anyway, as long as we call her as soon as we can. Is that okay? Ronnie tilted her head for a second. I know she wanted to come. She did, confirmed her father, but she also knows how important it is to you, and we are going with her total blessing. Are you sure? Completely. Ronnie smiled. That's fine with me too. Then that's fine with me too. Great. Just don't tell anyone that you're off. You know what people are like. There'll be talk of favouritism. Can I tell Danny? I doubt I could stop you, but he's discreet enough. Nobody else, though. Ronnie wanted to hug him, but there's an unwritten rule between them. They did not do that at school. She would save it for later. Thank you, headmaster, she said with a cheeky grin. On your way then, said her father with a twinkle in his eye. And I don't want to see you in here again any time soon. Ronnie nodded, raised her eyebrows, poked her tongue out at him, and then left the room, closing it noisily behind her. George could hear Miss Starner admonishing her about it. He smiled, opened his desk diary, and took great satisfaction from putting a line through everything after 11 o'clock on the page for the forthcoming Friday. Friday morning started for Ronnie with a drive in the car rather than her usual cycle ride. Annie had made them each a packed lunch and placed them in a cool bag in the boot of the car, and instead of the whole day's worth of books, Ronnie had the ones for the 2 lessons she was attending with her. That's a bit messy, let's do that again. Annie had made them each a packed lunch and placed them in the cool bag in the boot of the car. That could be a separate sentence, the one about her books. Instead of Instead of 6 lessons worth of school books, Ronnie had the ones for the 2 lessons that she was attending. Still messy. Instead of 6 lessons worth of school books, Ronnie had the ones for the 2. Lose the second repetition. Instead of 6 lessons worth of school books, let's lose the word school. Instead of 6 lessons worth of books, Ronnie only had the ones for the 2 that she was attending with her, as well as a change of clothes. That's better, isn't it? Friday morning started for Ronnie with a drive in the car rather than her usual cycle ride. Annie had made each a packed lunch and placed them in a cool bag in the boot of the car. Instead of six lessons worth of books, Ronnie only had the ones for the 2 that she was attending. In her backpack. Oh, right. Instead of 6 lessons worth of books, Ronnie only had the ones for the 2 that she was attending with her in her backpack, as well as a change of clothes, a pair of khaki combat trousers and a hoodie. Her father had decided they should make a day of it. The university was so close to their old home they had tentative plans to visit a couple of friends before the drive home. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I suppose. And remove the... That doesn't need to be italicised now. Ooh, right, let's do that paragraph again. Friday morning started for Ronnie with a drive in the car. I don't know what the hell that was meant to be. Friday morning started with Ronnie with a drive in the car on the usual cycle ride. And he'd made them each packed lunch and placed them in a cool bag in the boot of the car. Ronnie only had books for the 2 lessons she was attending with her in her backpack, as well as a change of clothes. She's suddenly from Texas. I am thinking of changing Marianne, because I've kind of got in my head that they are of Brazilian kind of origin. But there's a TikToker that I follow that's not non-binary, but is also a drag queen. And they are extremely, I say he because it's not they, he is extremely funny and articulate, particularly at the moment with all the shit that's going on in America. And I'm thinking of kind of changing the description of the character to match up with that person, because I do think they're very funny. Right, but anyway, that's a decision for the future. But then should I make Marianne to be a sort of, not so much Texas, but Southern American? I don't know, that's something I'm mulling over anyway. Right, her father had decided they should make a day of it. The university was so close to their old home, they had tentative plans to visit a couple of friends before the drive home. Tomorrow was Saturday after all, neither of them had school. George knew how long the visit to Mansfield University's health would take and had planned an additional surprise for his daughter that evening before the drive home. He was completely not sure it would happen. What? That's a cock-up, I've obviously changed that. He was not completely sure. That's right. I obviously just added the word and then put it in the wrong place. He was not completely sure that it would happen. Not completely sure that it would happen, so had not mentioned anything to her. Let's lose the he. So had not mentioned anything to her. Annie gave them both a hug, apologised for not being able to come with them, and wished them luck. Ronnie was unusually fidgety in her, I don't need to say 2 because I've already said that, so let's lose the 2 in her lessons that morning. Both of the teachers picked up on it, but only Danny knew why. As the second lesson ended, he dragged her to one side, wished her luck and hugged her. Ronnie went into the changing rooms and swapped her clothes. She had the spare car key with her and was soon sitting in the passenger seat. Her father managed to get out of his meeting, because it doesn't say his meeting, but I'm going to say his meeting. Her father managed to get out of his meeting. "10 minutes early, so at the time they'd originally planned to leave, they were already in the car and on the M5, heading north. They stopped at a service station just outside Birmingham. Ronnie had been so nervous that morning she had not felt like breakfast, and that caught up as she sat in the car with nothing to do but watch her dad drive. They were making good progress, and anyway, Dr. Peyton had said any time after 2. As it stood, there was a good chance they were going to arrive at the university a sled ahead of schedule. If they arrived late, it might prevent the additional surprise that he'd arranged for his daughter, which was to take place in a local coffee shop at 4. The person they were meeting texted him. The person they were meeting texted him as they had their lunch. I shall say, ate their lunch. Confirmed that she was still coming and at the agreed time. At 2:15, I just said they're running early and now I've said they're late, so at 2:45. At 2:45, they pulled up in the visitors' car park at Mansfield University in the southern campus known as Harlow. This doesn't exist, I've just made all this bullshit up. George had already printed the pass that Dr. Peyton had emailed him. It was validated and stamped by the guard on the gate, and it was not long before they found a parking spot less than 10 spaces away from the entrance to the door for the campus reception. This site ran 3 degree courses. Forestry, thanks to their proximity to Sherwood. Okay, see you in a bit. I don't know how long I'll do. I'm definitely going to finish this chapter, and I might do another because I've read the first 6 chapters, so I can go straight to edit this final sign-off. Mind you, my printer's knackered. I need to get a new toner. Anyway, enjoy your Zoom. The site ran 3 degree courses: forestry, thanks to the proximity to Sherwood, and 2 genetics courses: medical genetics and general genetics. George's old school friend, Richard, was the head of genetics. Let's lose the repetition of the word genetics. Site ran 3 courses: forestry, next to Sherwood, and 2 genetics courses: medical and general. George's old friend, school friend Richard, was the head of genetics. George had head of the department. Medical and general. George's old school friend Richard was the head of the department. George had texted Dr. Peyton as they entered the campus, and he was waiting by the reception door for them. "George!" cried Dr. Peyton as he walked over. The 2 men hugged warmly, and then Peyton turned to Ronnie. "And tradition requires me to say something like, 'This must be Ronnie, and you were this high last time I saw you.'" He held his hand to his knee and then held it out to Ronnie. She grabbed it enthusiastically and shook it. Peyton led them via reception, signed them in, and took them through to his office, where he sat them down. "Right," he said, rubbing his hands together. "You'll be wanting to know what all this is about." "Yes," said Ronnie. Her and her father agreed that she would take the lead at this meeting. It was, after all, about her. "You said that my DNA results were interesting." "Yes," said Dr. Peyton. "First, let me put them into context." He moved the mouse on his computer and pressed a button on a remote control that was on the desk next to a plastic tub containing a half-eaten sandwich and a banana. A projector mounted in the ceiling shone an image onto a pull-down screen on the wall. "PowerPoint presentation," George whispered to Ronnie. "Told you." Dr. Peyton smirked. He had got rid of what George had just whispered to his daughter, but continued regardless. "As you will appreciate, thanks to migration and ease of travel, everyone has a large mixture of genetic sources within their DNA." He put up an example. These are the results of someone we'd tested in the last few weeks. We've removed the name, obviously. The results come up on the screen as a bar chart next to a world map with colours that match the bars on the chart. This person had DNA that came from Europe, mainly North and West Europe, and a small percentage of English, Scottish and Irish thrown in there, and then just under a fifth came from Eastern Europe. So the chances are that with this person's grandparents, One came from somewhere like Croatia, one was British, and two of the others came from places like Finland or Denmark. It's not exact, but as you can see, this person was born in an age where people travel frequently. It's not unusual for there to be say decent, I'm going to say large. It is typical for there to be a large mixture of genetic origins within their makeup. With me so far, let me just read that again. This person had DNA that came from Europe, mainly North and West Europe, with a small percentage of English, Scottish and Irish thrown in there. Then just under a fifth came from Eastern Europe. So DNA came from Europe, mainly North and West Europe, with a small percentage of English, Scottish and Irish thrown in there. And just under a fifth from Eastern Europe. So the chances are this person... So with this person's background, one came from Croatia, one was British, and two of the others were from places like Finland or Denmark. It's not exact. You can see this person was born in an age where people... But you can see that this person was born in an age where people travel frequently, and it's typical there to be a large mixture of genetic origins within the makeup. With me so far. Ronnie nodded, as did George. Oddly enough, this was rather close to the topic that Miss Appleby would be taking with his class right now. Dr. Peyton hit a key on his computer, and another example came up on the screen. This person has family all from the UK, except for one Spanish great-grandmother, and again the results bear this out. The graph showed that 75% of this DNA from Great Britain and Ireland, 10% from southern Spain, with a smattering of a small percentage of other parts of Europe, and even a tiny percentage from Africa. There was another map with the irrelevant areas coloured in. So you can see that often what we see in the family tree is born out of what we can see in the genetic makeup. We can't do that here because we know actual parents. Again, I know what I'm trying to say, but that could be tidied up. So you can see that what we see here in the so you can see that what we see in the family tree is born out. So what you can see is what we observe. So you can see what we see in the family tree is born out. So you can appreciate what we see in the family tree is often born out of what we can observe in the genetic makeup. Not with you, though, because we have no information about your actual parents. Peyton looked worried for a moment. It's fine, Sir George. We are quite open about it. We're quite open about it. We're quite open about it. Okay, said Dr. Peyton. Click the image again. This time the bar showed two equal lines, both at 50%. One of the bars was marked as central Italy, and the other a very small area in the Highlands of Scotland. Ronnie sat forwards in a seat, fascinated. This never happens. In this day and age, the statistical properties of DNA being so specific are zero. Even 1,000 years ago, people were travelling enough so that this would probably not happen. Turn off the screen. If somebody was able to mix two sets of DNA from over 2,000 years ago and several centuries apart, this is what it might look like. It's unheard of now. One might almost say impossible if not for the evidence sat right before us. Also, you've got chloroplasts and can photosynthesize. Oh, that's good, said Ronnie. I get a sugar rush when I stand in the sun. That'll be why. No, that's not going in there. Oh, you're not listening now. I'm taking the mickey, but you're on your Zoom call, so no. We do that again. This never happens. In this day and age, the statistical probabilities of DNA being so specific, let me just... in this day and age, so of zero. Even 1,000 years ago, people were travelling enough that this would probably not happen. He turned off the screen. If somebody was able to mix two sets of DNA from over 2,000 years ago and several centuries apart, this is what it might look like. It's unheard of now. One might almost say impossible if it were not for the evidence sat right before us. Ronnie frowned, and she could see her father desperate to ask a question, but also wanting to keep his promise to Ronnie to let her lead the meeting. She smiled and nodded at him. How could this happen? He asked. We have no idea, replied Peyton. I've shown these results to friends and colleagues all over the world, and they say it's impossible. One of them even went as far as accusing me of faking them. I sent him the detail over, and he still did not believe me. So I'm a clone, said Ronnie to herself. I'm sorry? Asked Peyton. Am I a clone? No, said Peyton with a grin. Even if human cloning were possible, there are genetic markers resulting from what we know about the cloning process that we would be able to pick up on, which were not present in your sample. And we don't have the technology to successfully clone people now, let alone 16 years ago. It's a fascinating mystery. I'm not a clone, Ronnie said to herself. Danny will be disappointed. What is even more interesting, said Peyton, is that we compared the DNA from each possible parent to historical examples. According to this, your father was a Roman from approximately the 1st century, and your mother was a Scot from the Highlands about 5 centuries before that. So my parents were time travellers? Asked Ronnie hopefully. Danny would love that idea too, probably more than cloning. Peyton smiled. I doubt it. We cannot account for how your results came out like this. I would like to ask your permission to take 2 more samples so we can rule out someone tampering with your original tests. Not that I think that's possible, but just to make sure. Ronnie looked at her father with raised eyebrows. George nodded. That's fine, said Ronnie. Do you have any theories at all? None whatsoever, said Peyton with a grin. As I said, it's a fascinating mystery. After they'd finished talking in the office and Ronnie had given Dr. Peyton a couple more samples, George had phoned Annie to tell her the news. Then Peyton gave him a tour of the laboratory attached to the university. George kept glancing at his watch, and about 3:45, even though Ronnie wanted to stay and see more, George said goodbye to his friend, who promised to let them know if they learned anything new from the second set of tests, and led them back to the car is just unnecessary, so I'm just going to do a minor edit there. After they'd finished talking in the office and Ronnie had given Dr. Peyton a couple more samples, George had phoned Annie to tell her the news. Then Peyton gave him a tour of the laboratory attached to the university. George kept glancing at his watch, and about 4:45, even though Ronnie wanted to stay and see more, George said goodbye to his friend, who promised to let them know if they learned anything new from the second set of results. Ronnie was a little annoyed that he'd cut the tour short until George explained to her they had another appointment, which they were going to be late for. He would not give her any more details, but said she would like the surprise. It had taken them a while to find a space in the car park, and it was pouring down with rain by the time they made it to the Starbucks in the town centre. Shall I mention Starbucks? Yeah, I'm not mentioning it in a bad way. Ronnie had put a hood up over her head, but George did not have one, so his hair was soaked as they stepped into the coffee shop. Why are we here? Asked Ronnie. I didn't choose the location, said her father, scanning the other customers. His eyes finally rested on a lady who was about the same age as Ronnie's mother, sitting behind a laptop and a cup of coffee. I think that's her. The lady glanced up and saw them. She looked inquiringly at them, then beckoned them over. George and Ronnie? The lady asked. She had a hint of a Dutch accent. Ronnie gave a confused smile. Yes, who are you? George smiled. I haven't told her, it's a surprise. The lady examined Ronnie, a wistful look on her face. It's very nice to meet you. It is very nice to meet you, Veronica. My name is Maria Jansen. Now again, I haven't done this for a while, but Maria Jansen was the name on Ronnie's birth certificate. She had assumed it was the name of her real mother until her parents told her, well, actually, no, that was the name. We've no idea who your parents were. There has to be a name on the birth certificate. So it was the name of the social worker that processed you, entered you into the system, as it were. So Ronnie had no idea that was coming. That's good. I'm really pleased I managed to inject Karl Tucker into that a couple of times, actually. But it reinforces the fact that she hates him, so that's good. Right, so let me just run this through Grammarly, and then I need to decide whether I'm going to crack on with another chapter. Let's just export to Word file. Right, that's there. Now let me get into Grammarly, which I have to do via web now. Hopefully I'll still be signed in. Yes, I am. Well, oh, that's good. Right, let me just... 23rd of April was the last time I did some work. Well, oh, God, I've just seen my battery. It's because I'm charging the iPad with it as well. I'm sure that cable was longer than that. Obviously not. Right. If I plug that in... No. Right. Anyway, so let me drag this in. See what the Grammarly wishes to do to it. I'm going to accept that one. Any post, said he stuck his head around the door at the bottom of the stairs into the living room. Running the television on was channel hopping. As she turned her attention to her father, the picture settled on a news channel. The man being it was Karl Tucker, obviously. Stabbing. Shall I say stabbing? In the office floor, Ronnie poking at the man on the screen and stabbing the mute button on her remote with her thumb. On the remote with her thumb. Okay. It had something to do with her. Yeah, that's better. God, this looks like it hasn't been run through Grammarly, or maybe it's just got better since I did it. Yeah, all right then. There we go. So that's chapter 2, signed off. So download the finished version. Open it. There we go. So that is chapter 2 signed off. Let me close all these documents and drag it into, and this is only the second draft, so it's not, there will probably be more. What I'm hoping to do, well, I'm hoping as I was saying, that I'm hoping that at the end of this draft it will then be able to go out for feedback. Certainly seems to be good so far. Right, so let me certainly open up chapter 3. Now, sorry about this. Hey Siri, printer on. Right, okay, and now let me, although I do need to, I need a new toner, so this is lovely because it was printed in a hotel, but this is just going to look rubbish, isn't it? The printer may be out of toner. It's going to try though, isn't it? I need to order more toner. I need to find out what kind of printer I've got. Right, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes to order some toner. I'm going to just stick, hang on, stick the microphone off and do my be right back thing. Right. I officially despise myself. Officially. So I went on to I have a Brother series printer, laser printer, and I went on to the Brother website, and the best they could manage for delivery was in a week. So I went on Amazon. It was about the same price, so I don't feel like... And it was a legitimate Brother printer as well, a Brother toner, because you can get the cheap ones that are knockoffs, which is what I've used. And they're delivering it by 10 o'clock today. And I'm not even a Prime member anymore. And I'm still getting it by today. I feel dirty. But there we go. It is what it is. And it is a legit, because I do worry about, because sometimes some of their stuff is knockoff, but this is effectively the Brother shop through Amazon, and I don't mind. So when it's third party, like it's like using eBay in my humble opinion. So yes, I'm shocked and disappointed with myself, but on the other hand, I get a legit toner cartridge by tonight. Oh dear, that noise means somebody's doing something on my Discord server. They're probably registering their disgust as well. They should. What I've done is wrong. So anyway, so I have a terrible printout of chapter 3 here that's so bad I'm going to have to constantly refer to bits on the screen, but I'm going to do it because this is also read and edited, so it's just a case of going through. And as I say, up to the first 6 chapters I can do quite quickly, because I haven't been totally idle since I've been off. Like I've said, I've been reading chapters, I just haven't printed them. I'm so sorry, everybody. Bloody Amazon. Well, but then, do you know what? It's Brother using Amazon logistics as an easier, quicker, cheap way of getting the cartridge to me. So do you know what? I've still paid Brother, and I've used Amazon, as in used and abused. So I think that's acceptable. Cheers. I did consider... There's a few things I've considered joining recently. So when you said I have a Brother, I thought, since when? Well, quite. Yeah. Right. Let's crack on. I have a Brother brand printer. Yeah, it's a decent printer. I'm very pleased with it. As I say, the reason the toner looks so shocking at the moment is because I bought a cheap toner. Although it's lasted me for years, because what I really do, I always do it in draft quality. I don't do, just for this, I don't need it in beautiful quality. So, it uses less ink, and it's lasted me a really long time. So, so you're back. I take it your Zoom call has ended then. So I'm going to do chapter 3, I think. Right, hang on. Cool, right. Let me just minimise everything in a moment. Just need to... Pardon me. Right. Why is it having to download chapter 3? Come on, I just want to look at it. Eh? What do you mean downloading it? Sod off, it's here. Oh, I know why. Oh, right. Okay, so I'm going to have to do a bit sort of combined screen paper here because of the state of this printing. So chapter 3, meetings. Maria Janssen, you're the social worker that found me. Maria gestured for them to sit opposite her. Didn't I already sit down? Oh, no. No, I've dropped my bloody pen again. Oh, no, she hasn't already sat down. That's all right then. I thought in my head they already had, but apparently not. So, let's, okay. Maria gestured for them to sit opposite her. It was warm inside the coffee shop despite the door constantly open and closing. Ronnie sat and pulled the hood away from her face. Maria smiled again. I was a social worker, yes. I gave it up a few years ago. There are so many people to look after and not enough of us, and when things go wrong we get the blame, unfortunately. I used to feel I made a difference for the best. Not so much towards the end. She sipped at her coffee. I think I made a difference with you, she said gently, looking at Ronnie, who stared back at her. I'm going to lose the just. Again, I don't think Ronnie would go for a pumpkin spice latte. And also, is pumpkin spice just around November? And this is we've said this is post Christmas, so I shall just go cinnamon, vanilla. Yeah, so it wouldn't be pumpkin spice. I'll get a drink, said George, standing up. Ronnie? Vanilla latte with almond milk, said Ronnie, automatically. George stood and joined the short queue at the counter. When I last saw you, you were a tiny baby, she said eventually, to break the silence. You were found in the forest, unprotected. There was no note, no clues as to who you were. You could not have been more than a couple of days old, possibly just a few hours. We were so lucky that it was people that found you and not, say, a fox. Maria shuddered at the prospect. The person that found you took you to her home, made sure you were warm, and called the police. Ronnie nodded. At what point did you get involved? It did not feel real, as though they were talking about somebody else. Not straight away. An ambulance attended with the police and it was decided to move you to the neonatal unit at the local hospital, just to be on the safe side. Of course, we had no name for you. Who chose Veronica? Let's lose the so again. I put so in a lot and then always go, yeah, no. Who chose Veronica? One of the nurses at the unit had just lost a mother. I don't think she intended it to be your permanent name. It was just so they could call you something. The next day there was a press conference to try and get the word out and find your parents. They wanted the lady who found you to be in the picture with you, but she's very shy and did not want to be involved. I made the mistake of visiting the hospital at the wrong moment, and they talked me into being the person in the picture holding you. Let's just use the... Ronnie sighed. I had no idea. I found my birth certificate years ago. I thought you were my mother for a long time. George sat back down. They're going to bring them over. What have I missed? Ronnie quickly brought him up to date on what Maria had told her. I remember seeing the story on TV, said George, and although your mum and I had been assessed and signed off as potential adoptive parents, neither of us thought it would happen so quickly. I distinctly remember your mum watching the local news and being quite moved by it. Did you ever see the article? Asked Maria. George shook his head. Maria opened a bag on the floor and pulled out a large old... I'm just going to say an old scrapbook. Don't need the word large. And pulled out an old scrapbook that she had kept at the time. Obviously, that's just... doesn't need to be there. She flipped through a couple of pages and found the one she was looking for. She turned the book around and placed it on the table so it was facing them. There. There were a couple of pictures, one of a woman who was recognisably a young Maria holding a baby, and a close-up of the baby's face. Ronnie had seen the other baby pictures of herself from after she'd been adopted, and could see that the tiny creature in the grainy black and white photograph on the yellowing cutting was indeed her. She blinked back a tear and read the text, which said just what Maria had told her. Now let's just read the text. Wow, she said, sitting back. Just wow. Maria smiled sympathetically and looked across at George, who was wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. There are some cuttings from other papers on the next page. Ronnie carefully turned the large sheet and saw comparable articles with the same or similar photographs from other newspapers, including some national ones. She skim-read the text, but there were no new details hidden there. The investigation went nowhere. There were a couple of babies reported missing in the country at the time, but they were either found or could not have been new. Meanwhile, I did things for you that a parent usually do. I registered your birth. I was not imagine enough to come up with a new first name, and so I chose the surname Arden because it means Great Forest, which was where you were found. We guessed that you were no more than 2 days old, so we put that date on your birth certificate, which I signed. Once the people at the hospital were happy that you had suffered no adverse effects from being left outside, you were placed with a foster carer. They'd looked after a couple of children before you, but when they met you, they completely fell in love with you. They begged to be allowed to adopt you. I worked with them and could see that you would be loved if you stayed with them, so I supported them. A few months later, they officially adopted you. Maria had tears in her eyes now. Ronnie leaned forward on her elbows, her back arched over the low table, and started sobbing uncontrollably. George, too, was in tears. Member staff walked over with the coffees and dumped them on the table quickly, not wanting to get involved. George put his arm around Ronnie's shoulder, and she sank into him, comforted by his presence. Maria smiled to herself. I definitely backed the right horse, she said softly. Eventually Ronnie sat up. I didn't know you fostered other people, she sniffed. I always assumed you couldn't have kids. Her eyes were red with tears and her face was puffy. She pulled off her hoodie, revealing a plain white t-shirt underneath. We could, said George, but we only wanted one, and it was you. I'm sorry we didn't tell you all of this before, love. Because there was so little we could tell you about your past, we put it off and put it off. It wasn't that we wanted to keep it from you. We just didn't know what to say. All of the stuff we read told us to tell you sooner rather than later, but we just bottled it. And as you got older and we knew the kind of kid, he paused and corrected himself, the kind of person that you were, realised that you would be okay, that it wouldn't change anything. I'm sorry. Ronnie grabbed a napkin from the table and wiped her eyes. Don't be. I always felt like I was part of you, even when I found the birth certificate. Unlike... She sat there thinking for a moment. Her friend Danny was also an only child, but his mother had once told him that she had wished his Oh, God. Her friend Danny was also an only child, but his mother had once told him she wished she had terminated the pregnancy, not his pregnancy. And that's a harsh thing to say to someone, isn't it? I know someone whose mother told him that, and it's screwed him up ever since. He'd never got over that. It had damaged his confidence as soon as she said it. Her friend Danny was also an angel, but his mother once told him she had wished that she had terminated the pregnancy. He'd never got over that. It damaged his confidence as soon as she said it, and he never got it back. Let's lose the had there. Unlike poor Danny, she whispered. She hugged her father again, then glanced across to Maria. Thank you for taking the time to do this. It means a lot to me. She stood up awkwardly and moved around the table to hug Maria. Arden is a great surname, but I'm glad it eventually became Keen. Ronnie sat back down and took a sip from her latte. It was hot and sweet and tasted amazing. My pleasure, said Maria. It's lucky you caught me when you did. I have divorced my husband. I have. I'm going to change the word have into recently. I recently divorced my husband and I'm going back to live in. Live in Rotterdam in the next few weeks. She looked reflectively at them. I've lived here for almost 20 years and I feel like I'm not wanted anymore. This is just after the Brexit referendum, basically. This is set about 2 years after that. Well, we should always be grateful for what you did for us, said George. You have our number. Please keep in touch. Ronnie was more composed now. She took a few more sips from her coffee. What else do you know about what happened when I was born? I have told you everything that I know. said Maria. Let's just lose the have. I told you everything that I know, said Maria. Bear in mind that I don't work for social services anymore, but I remember looking after your case like it was yesterday. She shook her head. Fun to think it was over 16 years ago. She had another mouthful of coffee, but it was cold. George offered to get her another, but she declined. There is one other thing I can tell you. The lady that found you was a very private person. As I said, she did not want her name in the press and would not allow herself to be photographed. But she did stay in touch for a while and wanted to know that you were okay. Can you tell us who she is? Asked Ronnie. Ordinarily, probably not, admitted Maria. I don't have access to any information anymore. Let's lose the repetition of any. I don't have access to information anymore. But as I said, I remember this case like it was yesterday. I remembered her name, and when you contacted me to get in touch with her to ask permission... I remember her name, and when you contacted me, I got in touch with her. And when your father contacted me. I got in touch with her to ask permission to pass her details on to you. And, said Maria, deliberately teasing them for a few moments, she said... Maria left a deliberate, dramatic pause. Let's lose the word repetition of deliberate again. And, said Maria, deliberately teasing for him, she said... Maria left a dramatic pause as she delved into her bag for a piece of paper. Yes, she said yes. Maria handed the piece of paper to Ronnie, who almost tore it out of her hands. There was a name, address and telephone number on the scrap of paper, which Ronnie read to herself, then frowned. Ursula Baker. There was something familiar about the name. She's quite old now, said Maria. Early 90s, I think. But I have spoken to her on the phone, and she's happy for you to contact her. George took the piece of paper from his daughter and frowned. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Oh, another bit that's horrendously printed. I'm going to have to revert to the screen. I thought there was something familiar about it too, said Ronnie. She pondered for a moment. Then something popped into her head. Mrs. Baker from the Forest Church. What was her first name? George smiled and shook his head in disbelief. Wow, you're right. Ursula Baker is Mrs. Baker from the Forest Church. Dun dun dun. This revelation changed their plans. The original idea had been to find somewhere nice for dinner after they'd seen Maria Jansen. Do I need to repeat the Jansen? No, that can go. Let's just say Maria. And then head home after the rush hour died down on the motorway. Once they said goodbye and thank you to Maria. I don't need to say that. Thank you. George telephoned Annie and discussed what they should do next. It seemed silly not to contact Mrs. Baker as they were up here, but also rude just to expect to be able to turn up. So they decided to call on the number they'd been given. She answered the phone and said they were welcome to come now if they wanted, but tomorrow would be better. They agreed on 10:30 the next morning, and George immediately called Annie to ask what she wanted to do. Annie had been devastated that she'd been forced to miss out on the day's events and did not want to be excluded from tomorrow as well. They also decided it was too much of an effort to drive home and then come back, so George booked a couple of rooms at a local budget hotel, and Annie drove up and joined them. She was with them just before 8 o'clock. And the family had a late dinner in a restaurant close to the hotel. They booked Ronnie her own room, but she was restless by herself and ended up sleeping on the bed with her mum whilst George slept in her room. The next morning they had breakfast in the Greasy Spoon next to the hotel. I don't think Ronnie's a greasy spoon kind of girl. So I shall say restaurant. Again, this is all since I've decided she's vegan. It's just little subtle changes. Next morning they had breakfast in the restaurant next to the hotel and drove in convoy towards the address they'd been given. Mrs. Baker instructed them where to find the car park. It was about half a mile. Use the word walk. It was, and let's lose the about as well. It was half a mile from a house, which was down a footpath in the woods that led into the forest. The car park was expensive and they had 2 cars to pay for. Once the tickets were in the window, they followed the directions they'd been given. Ronnie instantly recognised the car park. It was the secondary one they once used. Used for the Forest Church when the main one was full. We can only be a couple of miles from the clearing where we used to hold the ceremonies, said Annie. George nodded, although he was somewhat reluctant to discuss it these days. It had been Annie's thing, really. She had subsequently described herself as going through a pagan... She had subsequent described as going through a pagan phase at the time. As a little girl, Ronnie loved it, so they carried on going for her benefit. She had taken away a lot of practical knowledge about the seasons and the life cycle of plants and trees, and had some very strong ideas about the place of humanity within it. When the family, hence why she loathes Karl Tucker. Obviously that's not in there. When the family had moved away, there was nothing like it in the area they were moving to. But even Ronnie had grown a little weary of the religious aspects of the group, as more people had joined and drifted away from being a multi-faith group and become more specifically Christian again. They knew that Mr. Brown had eventually left the group because he did not like this, but beyond that they knew very little. Mrs. Baker had never really expressed leanings one way or another. They had no idea if the group still existed or if Mrs. Baker was still part of it. Let's lose the repetition of still. The track they were walking down was about 1.5 meters wide. It was not quite straight and would twist and turn around the trunks of various trees that refused to obey the straight lines humans wanted to marshal them into. Let's lose the... wanted to marshal them into. It was a clouded day, so there was not much light in the wood. We must almost be there, said George, after looking at the map on his phone. I'd call it a warner, but there's no signal. They turned another slight bend, and there, to the left of the path, was a small cottage. There was a rough attempt at a garden around it, mainly some flower beds which were currently empty, and a picket fence that had once been painted white, surrounding the border of the property. On the left of the building was a small shed, and between it... Oh, that's the shed they're dumping your corpses in later, George and Annie, just so you know. Sorry. On the left of the building was a small shed, and between it and the main house a washing line, moving slightly in the wind and empty of clothes. That looks right, said George. He went to the front door and was about to knock when it opened in front of them. The face that greeted them was somehow familiar, yet not. The features were the same as the old lady they used to meet once a month in the woods with the rest of the group, but whereas then she had always come across as rather severe and no nonsense, she now had a broad smile on her wrinkled face. I'm lovely to my characters, aren't I? They had never seen her without a hat at the ceremonies, even in the depths of summer, but now her grey hair was tied up in a neat bun, held in place with a couple of pins. Her thin frame was wearing a green dress pleated around the skirt and buttoned up to the neck. Where her legs came out from under the dress, they were covered with thick stockings, and there were neat shoes on her feet. There were a similar-sized pair of green Wellington boots just outside the door. Oh, another bit where the printing's so bad I can't read it. Mrs. Baker, asked George. Ursula, please, replied the old lady with a grin. Do come in. The 3 of them trooped inside. Ursula took their coats from them and hung them on the coat hooks behind the door. The hall was full of stuff, books, shoes, plants. There was not an inch of spare space. It did not look untidy. Lived in was the description that sprang to Annie's mind. Come through and sit down, said Ursula. They all walked through an internal door from the hallway into a small living room. It was much brighter than they were expecting. From outside the house looked a little gloomy, almost like a witch's cottage from a fairy tale, but inside the old lady had made sure it was decorated with bright colours. The room was as full of stuff as the hallway. There was a small two-seater sofa in one corner, and opposite that was the armchair and coffee table that was Ursula's. Spot. I don't like that word. Let's read that back. There was a small two-seater sofa in one corner. Opposite that was an armchair and coffee table. From the dented cushions that furnished it, it was clear that this was Ursula's preferred seat. That's better. She had pulled one of the two chairs. She had pulled one of the two chairs from the small table next to the kitchen door and put it next to the sofa, so there was room for them all to sit together. Oh, I can do it back on here now. Ronnie took the chair and her parents took the sofa. Ron noticed there was a teapot on the table next to Ursula's chair. Tea? Asked Ursula. I brewed it just before we got here. That'd be lovely, said Ronnie. Similar to the previous meetings in the last 24 hours, George and Anne agreed that Ronnie would do the talking. Right, that's changed. Milk for George and Annie, 2 cigars for George. That's better, that's simpler as well. Let me think. Milk for George and Annie, 2 cigars for George? George looked puzzled. How did you know? I'm a witch, dear. Seriously? Of course not, said Ursula with a wicked grin. I haven't made tea for you before, you know. That was 7 years ago, said Ronnie in wonder. No, let's change it. Milk for all, 2 sugars for George. How do you know? I'm witch, seriously? Of course not. That was 7 years ago. I don't drink milk anymore. Just going to have to... Let me think. Milk for all, 2 sugars for George? Almost, said Ronnie. George replied, how do you know? I'm a witch, dear. Seriously? Of course not, said Ursula with a wicked grin. I haven't made tea for you before, you know. That was 7 years ago, said Ronnie in wonder. I don't drink milk anymore. I don't need word cows and they don't drink milk anymore. Ursula tapped the side of her head. My body may be going, but my mind is still as sharp as a button, she declared. You're doing okay to me, said Annie. How'd you get about? This is literally in the middle of nowhere. There's a bus stop a few hundred metres from where you parked your car, said Ursula as she poured and handed out the teas. And you walk there? Annie was almost incredulous. And back 4 or 5 times per week. How old are you? Asked Ronnie. She realised that this might be a rude question, if you don't mind me asking. Not at all, dear. The teas were all distributed, and Ursula's back in her armchair. 93 years, that I'm admitting to. Another mischievous grin. Obviously, we now know she's nearer for 300. Wow, said Annie. Anybody would be as pleased to be as mobile as you are, she almost said at your age, but corrected her at your time of life. Yes, they would, declared Ursula. Anyway, we're here for Veronica. Ronnie, dear, what can I tell you? Ronnie gulped. Just everything you can remember. Ursula sipped at her tea before replacing the cup on the saucer. It was a Sunday morning. On Sundays I always go for a long walk in the forest. Do now. It was the 16th of November 2003. It was balmier than usual, so I decided to go to do a longer walk. I ran into a lady that had lost her dog. It was a Gordon setter called Brodie. That was one of my dad's dogs. Beautiful dog. I helped her find the dog. At this point the lady was completely lost, so I showed her the way to the car park. On the way, Brodie ran ahead and started sniffing at something on the side of a clearing by a tree. We ran after him and found that there was a tiny baby on the ground. Whoever had put you there had not even bothered to clothe you. I picked you up and you gurgled at me and then burst into tears. The lady offered to drive us into town, but I said I'd rather bring you back here and call someone, which I did. The police, and again I've given the police a capital P because I do that, because I elevate their importance in my head. Right. The police and an ambulance, and presumably ambulance doesn't have a capital either. The police and an ambulance came and checked you over and took you away. The social worker, Miss Jansen, spoke to me the next morning, Monday, and asked me to be part of the campaign to find your parents. But you didn't. I didn't want to fuss, dear, said Ursula. You were safe and being looked after. That was all I needed to know. Now that's a loaded line. It was a surprise when you joined the Forest Church. I usually said no to children. When I realised it was you, I was curious and wanted to see how you were getting on. But you never said anything, said Ronnie. Not my place, dear. It was lovely to see that you were fit and happy. Can I ask a question, Ronnie? Asked Annie. Another terribly printed page. Of course. Were there no clues at all about where she came from? No. I know the police cordoned off the area as soon as I showed them where it was and looked for clues, but they found nothing. I know it's a lot to ask, said Ronnie, but could you show me where you found me? It's not a lot to ask at all, said Ursula with a smile. Have your tea, and then I will take you there. Anyone for a ginger nut? I have got a biscuit fixation. There's lots of biscuits in my books. I suspect there's biscuits in English Hikikomori as well. As they drank their tea, Ursula told them the church group had fallen apart gradually. She'd stayed in touch with Mr. Brown until he died 3 years ago and now had nothing to do with anyone else from the group. About half an hour later, they were all walking in the trees. Ursula was dressed in a long coat, scarf and hat and looked a lot more like the Mrs. Baker they remembered. She scurried along at a ridiculous pace, stopping every few hundred metres for them to catch up. Biscuits. Arrgh. George and Annie were soon quite out of breath and marvelling at the speed of the old lady. She kept racing ahead. How much further? Asked Annie as they took another turn down a different path. It wouldn't be another turn down a bloody mine shaft, would it? Let's lose the different path. They rounded another corner and suddenly Ronnie knew where she was. We're close to where we used to hold the ceremonies, she said. Ursula rested for a moment on her walking stick and smiled. Yes, just another couple of 100 yards that way. She motioned ahead with the stick, then continued at a breakneck pace. She stopped again soon, and the others caught up with her. She pointed at the base of a large tree with her stick. There you are, dear. That is where we found you. I might italicize the that. There was a root system leading to a large yew tree, with a gap a couple of trees crossed between two of the larger roots. There, between those two. Ronnie felt a strange sensation crawl over her body. She stepped forward to look at the leaf-covered space, and as she did so, her hand rested on the trunk of the tree. There was a strange feeling in her fingertips as she touched it, not electricity, but not dissimilar. She closed her eyes and moved a hand across the trunk. There were lumps and indentations under her fingers and leaves from some ivy. Her eyes still closed, she raised her hands and touched a branch above her. It was exactly where her fingers expected it to be. After a few seconds, she opened her eyes and turned to face Ursula and her parents. This is my tree, she stated simply. From the initiation ceremony all those years ago. Ursula nodded. Yes, dear, it is. And it's not a coincidence, because that tree gave birth to her, but for some reason didn't give her any tree DNA. Can't imagine why. Yeah, shall I do more? Do I want to do... No, that printing is absolutely abominable. So I think I'm going to, well, I'll run this through Grammarly now, obviously, and then I'll probably call it a day for today. Oh, I could do the podcast, actually. I could do the pod before I have something to talk about. Shame. Well, I'm just having to, I like doing it off paper. I think I spot more, and half the time I'm having to revert to the screen because the printing's so bad. So, but I shall do more. I'm absolutely determined to get roughly half of this book done. Whilst I'm off. So I will be doing a couple of chapters a day, certainly whilst I'm in the UK, maybe when I go across to America. Oh, is it transmitting all right? My TV's just gone a bit funny. I meant to shame no tree DNA. Yeah. But also simply, of course, absolutely. You know, now I've put those words in your mouth. You have to say that. Right then, let's... Oh, I was thinking something, by the way. You saw the new title sequence, the new images and stuff. I considered doing it in colour this time because some of those images absolutely look amazing in colour. But then I was thinking about, particularly yourself, but generally people, you know, who have got problems with their sight. Would it be more difficult to see the writing if it was colour backgrounds? I assumed it probably would be, which is why I decided to leave them in black and white. But because they'd still have the little borders around them, because that was the learning we took away from when I did the title sequence originally earlier in the year. It would be more difficult. So it's better black and white. Okay, cool. I shall leave it like that then. I shall leave it as it is, I think, then. That's easy. And I'm in the process of taking some moving shots, actually. So I'm trying to take some... So the next version will... Because what was nice is, all I did was replace the pictures in the file. And I might do some moving images next time. A bit like the clouds in the very opening shot are moving. Yeah, I quite like the black and white as well. It's just... So that picture, the one picture of the bird... Which, let me just try and find it. I think it's that one. Yeah. I love that picture. Let me just go to that. I think this is absolutely... This is a picture I took in the Botanical Gardens in Singapore. And I think it's absolutely stunning. And I did kind of feel a little bit... Oh, I could do that. I mean, that would be a bit of... Well, it wouldn't be hassle. It would mean I would have to create it separately. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. That's not a bad idea at all. Yeah. Because it is a lovely picture, isn't it? The colours... As it's the last one before we go live. Oh, I like the justification. Yeah, that would work, actually. So all I would need to do... Yeah, is just have a transition. Yeah, I might do that. Oh my God, I'm going to be doing version 4 of the opening title, because version 1 was the one that you couldn't read very well. So I remember sitting with you in Waterstones and we played with it so you could see it better. Version 2 was the improved version. Then version 3 was the one I've literally just done. I do like that idea, but that's a nice picture, isn't it? That's quite cool. Yeah, that's a really, really good idea. I'm not going to do it now. Let me just duplicate that image. So File, Duplicate, and let's just edit it and create a black and white version. I'm sure that's something I can do. I'm not going to do it now, he says, blatantly about to do it now. Tools, adjust colour. So if I do that, there we go. Right then. So new project. So this is going to be so easy to do. All I need to do is drag those two images into this. And then have quite a long transition. So if I have that as 2 seconds without, and then transitions, cross dissolve, but make the actual dissolve. Can I change the length of time of the dissolve? Surely I can. And have it last for about 6 seconds or 7 seconds. Yeah. The clip's not enough media available to change the length. Oh, sod off. It's a still photograph, you useless bugger. Well, how long will it let me do? So let me do 3 seconds. I'll just keep doing it and let me do 4 seconds. Yep. 3.8 seconds seems to be the longest it'll let me do. Okay. So now it looks like this. I like that. Good suggestion there, that person. Let me just, it's got to be a 16-second clip in total. So let me just because I can also zoom in slightly or zoom out, so 16 seconds. Oh, that's fine. So file, share. Now I want it at the maximum quality it'll let me do. Oh, that is the maximum quality it'll let me do. Oh. Why would it let me do more than that? Oh, okay, right. Okay. There you go, you're going to get to see the new version of the titles live. I like that idea, that was a really good idea of yours. I'm going to now load it into the opening title sequence and then literally just put that into there instead and replace from the start. 16 seconds. Oh, perfect. So that hang on, come on, why doesn't that let me do that? Ah, there we go. Right, and I just want to quickly do that so that so it's going to start. Actually, no, I want it to start there and zoom in a little bit on the bird. Right then, so this is what it'll look like. Ooh. Now, what I've seen has happened there is the dissolve is actually removing part of the... So let me just go back there and make the... Oh, it's only up for 0.1 of a second, so let's have that up for a few seconds. And then... So do that again. Yeah, you've come here to watch me edit videos, haven't you? Woohoo! Right, so now that is saved. So let's go back to there and just drop that into there and go replace from start. And will it keep all my other settings in there? No, it won't. So let me just go back to there. Ken Burns it. So start like that, and end like that. There we go. Right, so this is now oh, I like that. Well done. Good call. Right, so let's now save that. Share file. And so it's version 4. Version 3 has got a lot in common with version 1, actually, because neither of them lasted very long. Splendid. You have my uses. Yeah, you're not getting a credit, but you know. That was such a nice idea, thank you. Right, as soon as that's saved, I shall just load it into the software, this software. Now I need to use something called studio mode, which enables me to go into something without showing it on the screen. So, countdown video. Oh. I need to drag it into the right folder first. Where is it? Hang on. What a mess I'm making. So it's in my documents folder. And it is, there we go, version 4. Right, so we just now need to make sure it's using that version. Where did I say put it? Documents, version 4. Okay. Shall we test it? I'm just going to test it. Bear with me. So you get to see it now. Or not. Something's gone wrong there. Why isn't that working? Oh, because I'm on studio mode. Let's try that now and see if this works. Hang on. It somehow retained the old file. That's annoying. What the? Oh, no, phew. No, it is. It's happening. Sorry. Hello. I was about to start swearing. Then I thought it hadn't worked, but it has. So that's good. I'm just going to watch it because my live TV, the live video on the TV is like really behind this. So I'm just going to Watch how that looks on the telly. Yeah, that's a really good idea, and that subtle is nice. That fade is nice and subtle. Excellent. Right, let's do the podcast. Let's find the software for doing the podcast. It's been a while. Or should I just do it on my phone? No, let's do it on here. Right, just loading Audacity. How audacious. Right, okay, no worries. Thank you for watching. I shall do this and then I shall stop now as well because it's nearly lunchtime. I've not eaten yet, so I need to get something to eat. Right, so it is... Hello, today is Sunday. Oh, God, you see now, look. Something's gone wrong there because it's not recording anything. Try that again. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's working. Right, so thank you to Bow Street Society for watching. I shall catch you later. Right. Bugger. Hello, today is Sunday the 4th of May 2025 and you're listening to the Diary of a Wannabe Writer. 4th of May, also known as May the 4th or Star Wars Day. And I'm not really... I suppose there is something I'm going to do today to sort of celebrate that. So I do like Star Wars. I do think the extended media is all a little bit OTT and there's a bit much of it. But I've never watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi television series and I'm told it's very good. I think I watched a couple of episodes around a friend's before, but never really watched any more than that. So I'm going to make a concerted episode to watch 2 or 3 episodes of that today. I did actually watch episode 1 yesterday. It was quite slow, but I did enjoy it. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. So it's unusual. You'll be getting this podcast not long after lunchtime, which must mean I've done some writing. Well, yes, I have. So I decided today to look at chapter 2 of Empress of the Trees. If you remember, I actually printed it off, a couple of weeks ago, something like the 21st of April. And I got it printed for me in a hotel in Singapore. And I've obviously done nothing with it since then. I don't begrudge myself that. Sometimes it's quite sensible and necessary to have a little break. And obviously there was quite a big gap. So I only think I did 1 podcast in the last 8 or 9 days as well, in a planned way. It wasn't like I went, oh, I can't be bothered to do this. I'm not going to do it anymore. I did tell you all that I was having a break and I came back when I said I would. And yeah, anyway, so I read through chapter 2 today as a sign-off. And one of the things I felt I needed to do in that chapter, well, not specifically that chapter, but one of the things I had down, well, it turns out I didn't have it in my notes, which is weird, but one of the things I felt I needed to do at some point was to introduce the concept of the character of Karl Tucker. Now, Karl Tucker is the big bad, effectively. He's the bad guy in the book. And I wanted him to be a known presence. I wanted him to exist in the story, to have been mentioned before the first time we see him. And I was trying to think of a way of doing that. And there was a moment where George pops his head round the corner of the living room door, where Ronnie is, and I never stated what she was doing. So I decided that what she was doing was watching the telly. And she's channel hopping, and as she talks to her father, she stops channel hopping and it leaves it on a news channel, and there is an image of Karl Tucker, and it just says that he is somebody who supports industry over environmentalism, and she literally screws up her face and pokes her tongue out at him before continuing the conversation with her father. And it's great because it means he's there. It means he doesn't just turn up. It's in the second section of the book. The book's now in 5 sections, and I suspect he turns up in part 2 because he must do, because part 1 is up until the point where Ronnie meets the tree spirit for the first time. Part 2 ends with the oxygen, with a test run of the trees proving to humanity, having delivered the directives, they prove by turning off the oxygen for a few days. Part 3, I think, ends with the cliffhanger that there are two factions of trees and one of them just wants to wipe out humanity. Part 4 ends with the majority of our characters ending up, absorbed in the trees as the world ends. And then obviously the last part is just what was meant to be just the epilogue, is 3 chapters set in the world after the end of the majority of the human race. Yeah, anyway, I probably didn't need to explain that in that level of detail, but it filled a couple of minutes. So Karl Tucker, who is my bad guy throughout the book, he's introduced in the second part, is now mentioned in the first part, which is nice because it just feels like he isn't suddenly there, which is really cool. So that's good. I did that, and then so I signed off chapter 2. And I never did chapter 3 on Grammarly, I've just realised. But yeah, so I've also signed off chapter 3. Well, actually, I meant to do it and then got distracted by editing some images in my title sequence. If you watch my Twitch stream, you'll know I have a little title sequence. It uses the same music that I use for this podcast, but it obviously has images with it. And I kind of played with the images and altered them. And I've suddenly realised that I was doing that when I should have been running chapter 3 through Grammarly. So as soon as I've done this, I shall run chapter 3 through Grammarly. And that leaves me with the first 4 chapters signed off. Now, if you remember me talking last month, that was kind of where I said I wanted to be when I got back from Singapore. Then I wanted to sign another few chapters off by the end of that month. Well, it didn't happen. I needed the break. I've been very productive this year, so I don't begrudge myself that. My targets haven't really changed. So my target for May, which I will tell you about now, is to continue editing Empress of the Trees. I would like to try and get at least a third of the way through it, which is logical because I am... because I've given myself to the end of July to do this. There's 43 chapters, so that's roughly 14 chapters a month I need to do, which is quite a solid turnaround. And of course, because I'd already done a couple before this, so I think the actual target I've set myself this for the end of this month is the end of chapter 20. Now, bearing in mind I'm not working till the 19th, I've also read the first 6 chapters in detail, so all I really need to do is the formal sign-off that I've already done with chapters 2 and 3 today. I don't think getting to chapter 20 by the end of this month is unrealistic. There are 2 additional targets I need to set myself. The first one is to resubmit the English hikikomori, because all 3 of the agents I sent it to have either rejected it or it's expired, so they all say they will get back to you within a certain time frame, and if they don't, you can assume that they are not interested. Well, those deadlines have all passed, so I need to submit the English hikikomori to another 3 agents this month. And the other thing I need to do is to prepare still life for agents. Now, I have got another paperback copy, which I think is the final version, arriving in the next few days. I will read through it to make sure it's okay, but I imagine that is signed off now. So I need to prepare the package for agents for that. So that will be cool. And the other thing I would like to do this month, but I'm not going to set it as an absolute target, is to write or to finish writing that short story, my part of my 60/40 collection. But that's kind of my final target, and I'm not too bothered if I do it or not. So once again, to reiterate, my targets for this month are to get up to chapter 20 of Empress of the Trees, second draft edited, to submit the English hikikomori to 3 more agents, and to prepare my submission package for still life. Now, that doesn't mean I will necessarily submit it this month, although if I do get it done before the end of the month, there's no reason not to. I will. That means writing a synopsis. It is a little bit of work, and I will probably run that past. I think my friend the author T.G. Campbell is or was watching this, because this, as well as being a podcast, this is on a live stream, and you were watching it, but I think you've gone now. So when you listen to the podcast later, it probably won't be a surprise that I will ask you to just give my letter and synopsis a bit of a proofread, if that's okay. Anyway, so that's my targets for the month. Tomorrow I will come back and hopefully do another couple of chapters. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. Right then. God, it's been such a long time since I've done this. I don't actually know where the files are for the music. They must be in podcast audio. That would make a lot of sense. Oh, there we go. Diary of a Wannabe Writer open, and Diary of a Wannabe Writer end. just going to maximise the screen. Bear with me as I do this. So open needs to be at the top. That needs to be way down there somewhere. Let's just get the transition done. Now I think I like the talking to start there. Let me just listen to it to make sure that's right. Hello, today is Sunday the 4th. No, it's not, it's wrong. It's that one. Hello, today is Sunday. That's it. It's the second pulse of that end bit that I like the music to kick in on. And then once again, let's just whack the end credits to where I want them to be. Zoom in to make sure that it's right. That looks fairly good actually. Let's just drag that along a bit further. Let's just right. Do another couple of chapters. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to the diary. So file, export as MP3. It's called 040525. Save. Okay. Minimize that. That's there. I drag it into there because it will update the cloud in a moment. I'm hoping. It has, which now means it will be, let me just go back to here. It will now be on my phone, so I can go straight into Spotify for Creators and get it uploaded. So I'm going to call this is episode 105, and I'm going to call it May Targets. I talk about the writing I've done today, comma, and what my targets are for this month, full stop. So I talk about the writing I've done today and what my targets are for this month, so that's good. Explicit context. I always put yes, although in reality I don't swear very often on the podcast. Right then, change the picture. So, description's right, that's right, that's right. Oh, I didn't put the date on. I'm going to put the date on. So it's the, what do we say, 5th, 4th. So that's done, right, and says there's no file there, but there is, there blatantly is. It did this to me yesterday. Right, so whilst that's doing its thing, let me just go back to here and I'll quickly do the Grammarly thing. So it says there's no file uploaded, but I've just uploaded it, so that's bizarre. Let's just... Right, so that's saying there is. Okay, so publish. So podcast is out. Let me just... Did I close down? Of course I did. Idiot. Right, let me just open up Safari again, go to Grammarly. Okay, so let me go through this. Actually, I will accept that change. No, that's right. That's what I wanted to say. No, they're agreed on. That's deliberate. So dismiss what you're telling me there. Wow, that was easy. Right, so export or download. Okay, we'll quickly open that in Word. Copy it, paste it into a neutral party so all the annoying formatting bollocks doesn't transfer across. And then there we go, size 11, line spacing 2, chapter done. There we go. Let's lose all that. Right. And just drag it into the right folder. Very pleased with that today. Some good work. Some good work done. So that's the first 4. So the book is effectively a prologue and 43 chapters. So it's 44 chapters effectively, of which 4 are done, only 40 to go. I've just had a notification that my podcast is up. I think that's me done for today. Pleased with that. I shall come back tomorrow and hopefully sign off. Well, hopefully have a new printer toner, so it'll look a lot better on the screen. Well, you won't be able to see how bad it is, but that is terrible. So yeah, so chapter 4 and maybe chapter 5, and maybe chapter 6. As I say, because I have read all of those. Oh, and I've got my Karl Tucker reference crowbarred in, and it doesn't sound too bad. So yeah, altogether a successful day. So thank you so much for watching. Those of you that I can't actually tell. Where's my remote? I don't even know if anybody is watching now. I know Bow Street Society has gone and done something else. So I'm going to kill the Discord. That's disconnected. And let me get the screen back. And that's me done for today. You'll see that I haven't amended the end credits, but that's fine. So thank you for watching. Take care. I will probably be back to do more of this tomorrow. Bye bye.